We love shooting, hunting, and educating. So if you want to learn about long-range shooting, you're in the right place. This is the Long Range Addicts Podcast. Shooter ready, stand by.
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm going to try something different this week. I've been gone a lot. I've been hunting a lot, so I apologize. I haven't been doing these. I've been getting yelled at by a lot of people. We've been out a couple weeks, but we're going to start recording a whole bunch more. We've got a bunch of people lined up. Jason's joining us today. We're excited to talk to him. If you saw my unboxing of the new 7 from Falkor, that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to talk to him today. First off, I want to thank our sponsors, Benchmark Barrels. Appreciate them as always. Their new carbon fiber barrels are out. A lot of people talking about it. I've gotten a lot of messages about them. I'm looking forward to trying them. Go check out their website for their new carbon fiber offerings. Long Range Tactics. If any of you want to see some cool reviews, talk to people. There's a group, Long Range Tactics group on Facebook, and then the longrangetactics.com where there's full reviews on a whole bunch of different items. We've got a great team of guys that are guys and gals. We just got a new gal on there, Serena, that are going to go through and do great reviews on a bunch of stuff. There's already a whole bunch. So go check that out. Anyway, without further ado, how you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great. Getting pretty excited. Had a great Thanksgiving, and obviously we're heading into the Christmas season, and we don't got a lot of snow up here yet in the valley up here in Montana, but the mountains sure are getting flooded. And, this is a real busy time of year for us, like it is for most. The year's coming to an end, the Black Friday, Christmas, so trying to keep up with demand. And obviously with all the political unrest and everything else that's happening, it doesn't make anything easier, but just been blessed. I mean, a lot of us, we like to complain about how busy we are, but then, we like to complain about, we're not selling enough. So I like to count my blessings, but how are you doing down there?
We're good. I mean, it's been a really dry year. The hunts were extremely hard this year down here with deer and elk. They weren't moving. They weren't doing anything. The bulls weren't bugling, during rifle season. So it was rough. I went on a limited entry bull hunt with my father-in-law, got a big snowstorm, and that's the last snowstorm we've got. So it was just weird that it happened right when it did. Moved a lot of elk around, which was good, but it's been crazy dry here as well. How was your guys' hunting season? Did it affect it at all?
It was, we had mixed results up here. Depending on who I talked to, it was tough hunting. It was really warm early on in September, and it rolled all the way through October. We had like an Indian summer up here. And obviously the cooler weather gets those elk bugling and gets them in the rut. But I know quite a few that got some, and I know a lot more that didn't. And so I think it's kind of like what you were saying, the lack of snow, and we have a lot of predators up in this area. That's devastating some of the populations that I'm hearing more and more every year about, which is disappointing to hear. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get out as much as I wanted to, obviously. Been busy with a lot of projects, but I plan on going on several hunts next year. I'm trying to get a tag down in New Mexico. There's some big bulls down there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen a lot of them killed off of there. There's a few guys I know that hunt the Mascalero and some areas down there. There's some big bulls. Utah had some big bulls come off this year. I think the new state record got killed this year. He was 440. I mean, he was just a monster. He was a huge, huge elk. And I know your wife hunts a lot, doesn't she? Didn't she have like the Grand Slam of sheep or something?
Yeah. So she, I was hoping she could stop by and say hello, but she couldn't make it in today. But yeah, she's going for the North American Super Slam. Dude. So that's 29 North American big game species. I think she's on 21 out of the 29. She hasn't hunted in the last 3 years. She's been busy with me. I've been using her around the shop, and of course she's the boss lady. So we all know that. All of us married men, we all know who the boss is in the family. Mm-hmm. And that's no different with me. But no, she's a great hunter. She's getting into shape. She's got one more sheep left. So she's got the other 3, and they're hanging up here in the lobby. And if you ever get up here, you get to take a look at them.
Well, you said the thing that always intrigues me. You said predators, and that's the biggest. I love to hunt predators, but those are my they're my freaking, thing that I really want to do. We've killed a whole bunch of foxes this year. We've killed coyotes. We've killed wolves are on my list. I really want to go up to BC and shoot one of those. And then, bears, lions. I've hunted mountain lions a few times, but they've always outsmarted me. They're just smart animals, but things. So I guess let's kind of go to the beginning of Falkor. Now, I know Falkor really came out and really came on the scene when you guys released like the Petra and things like that, 300 Win Mag AR-10 systems. Give us a little bit of background about Falkor itself, would you?
Yeah. So, before Falkor, we were in business as SI Defense. And people were around, maybe 10 years ago or so, or even earlier. That's who we really were. And that was when my father was still the owner of the business and I was working for him. And, we started the Petra was born actually years before we really took it to market, back in the day when my father was still here. And in 2013, Melinda and I purchased the businesses from my father, and he retired. And so we rebranded the SI Defense to Falkor Defense. And it's just something Melinda and I wanted to do since we bought the business. We wanted to rebrand it, and we really wanted to come out with some innovative products. And we have. And obviously, you brought up the Petra. That was a big one. And we actually have a few other high caliber ARs. We just never finished them off and took them to market. They're all developed. But the Petra, was such a great launch for us. It really put us on the map, like you said, as far as getting us out there and separating us from all the other AR manufacturers. High caliber, real low recoil. You can actually shoot it one-handed, semi-auto. But you need deep pockets, obviously, especially now. Ammo is at a premium. But you'll never find a rifle that's more smooth, shooting out past 1,000 and semi-auto. It's an experience. Unless you shoot it, it's just hard to explain.
So why, I guess the big question is, why have you guys not chased the military contract side of things, or have you? Maybe I just don't know.
We kind of did. It's a whole nother realm. We started looking into doing direct business with the government, especially, with the firearms, because we do a lot of aerospace. It's a whole nother can of wax, I would say. It's, and we thought about it. We've introduced our guns there. We took them to the range out there. We've been all over. But we never really just pursued it. We were busy with commercial hunting, and it's not something that we've taken off the table by no means. But we've sold some of our ARs to a lot of LE, including the Petra, in small groups inside the military, but nothing mainstream. We're just not built for that right now. So that's one of the major reasons right there. Is it's a personal decision that me and Mel made.
Yeah, and see, when I worked for Remington Barnes, we had contracts with the PSR contract. We had, REM defense contracts, and I worked on a lot of those ammo things. And people do not understand how miserable those contracts are. They actually sent people from Colorado to just look over our shoulder the entire time. I mean, we had babysitters. The amount of paperwork that goes into it and everything else. A lot of people are like, "Oh, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" And honestly, it's hard. It's really hard. But the thing a lot of companies have found out when they get into military contracts, it seems like everybody wants them all of a sudden. Ooh, somebody, some 3-letter agency or somebody's using them, so they want to do it. But I mean, that's kind of, how you guys base your thing around. So the Petra is 300 Win Mag, and what else?
We were dabbling with the 338. And the interesting story about that is we initially were going to launch a platform in the 338 before we even released the Petra. And we chose the Petra because it was just more economical, for most people. So you look at it business-wise for a lot of reasons. Like you said, as far as military contracts, the small ones that we dabbed into, the cost. I mean, like you said, there's people looking over you. The volume's cool because they throw bigger quantities at you, but they want the big steep discounts. And when you add it all up at the end of the day, you're really not making a lot of money.
No.
And so, when you look at these high caliber, you got to be careful. There's a lot of people that love those high calibers.
Mm.
But when there's ammunition shortages, people tend to be careful about buying those. I see it here at Falkor. So, but the 338 was something that by no means have we took off the table. We'll probably release that later on down the road. The 300 Norma, we get a lot of requests about that platform. So people love them. And I think we got a really good solution to how those things work, the gas, the pressures, and everything else, and the chambering that comes along with them. And we found out the formula, and we love to get back into that in bigger calibers like the 338.
Yeah, and there's a crap ton of pressure. So to understand, for most people, I guess they don't really understand how much pressures go into, trying to run a gas system and everything else. Are those a direct impingement systems, or what are they exactly?
They are. Yes.
They are.
They
so
are.
You don't have to deal with all the gases then.
No.
Not as much as normal.
Right. And, I think the biggest thing that surprised me when we were, this was a long time ago. This was back in 2010 or so, over 10 years ago. When you take a look at a 223 cartridge and then you take a 300 Win and you're like using that type of platform, you're just going bigger. There's a big difference. And, you start pulling the trigger and you're doing all your R&D and testing on that, in the back of your head, you're like, I'm not too far away from a catastrophic failure if I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah.
Or, my biggest fear is there's a lot of people these days buying these ARs that, they start fiddling and faddling and taking them apart. And I know that's part of the intrigue of having these ARs. But if you don't know what you're doing and you start messing around with things,
Mm-hmm.
it's just dangerous. And, I don't want to put anything out there to scare people. I'm just saying you better know what you're doing when you start messing around with gases and suppressors and taking barrels off and putting them on and doing all these things. If you don't know what you're doing, just go see a trained professional or a good certified gunsmith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a big thing. Is a lot of people complain. They're like, "Well, my AR-15's breaking. The gas system can't hold up. The bolt carriers can't hold up. Everything's going to shit on them." And those don't take nearly the pressure that a 300 Win Mag would. So I could only imagine how long it took you guys to figure out how to make that. So all those forces aren't destroying everything inside of them.
Right, and so imagine putting a suppressor on the end of that and adjusting your gas or not adjusting your gas. And, we've noticed that you can bend and break our bolt catch just like that, just
Mm-hmm.
because you're overgassing it and you cannot believe the pressure of that BCG coming back and hitting that. So, it's a whole nother level. All the science and everything else behind how it works is the same, but you just need to understand it at a deeper level, I guess. But, the Petra, I know what you're going to ask next. Well, how do you go from ARs and the Petra to all of a sudden entering into the bolt action world?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're dying to know. I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Because my background is in manufacturing and aerospace and ARs. And over the last 10 years, it's really changed. As you well know, there's a lot of people building them. But Melinda and I, we've always wanted to get into the bolt action world because that's what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
We're hunters. I was shooting bolt actions when I was a little kid and hunted with them and did all of that. So the timing just wasn't right for us. We had a lot of other things going on. in our business as far as growth goes, aerospace and things. And so if you're going to tackle the bolt action world and do it right, it just wasn't right for us. Now it's right. I think, our brand has proven that, we stand for quality, high caliber stuff. So getting into the actions was something that has always been on the back of our minds for the last, 6 years, 7 years. And this started about 2 years ago. So we spent about 2 solid years modeling these actions up, testing them, manufacturing them, breaking them, and trying to figure it out. When you look at these actions, and you well know, you've been around them all your life. It's a lot more than just a action. There's, you look simple, you get on it, you pull the bolt back, you put a round in, you push it forward, and you pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
You don't give it any thought about all the other things that it takes, especially the tolerancing and the features and the little things that you're just not aware of until you start building it. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people don't realize I just can't go across the street and just ask my competitor to tell me what's going on. Hey, show me your tolerances. Tell me this. Tell me, they're my competitor, and they're not going to do that. And you can try to reverse engineer things. The 700 Remington Action's been around for decades. So, I know a lot of people wonder, well, what's so hard about it? Why can't you do that? Well, you can until you start introducing stack tolerances and not knowing what tolerances to put on certain things. Mm-hmm. And you get into the pre-fit world and the tenons and all the accuracies and all that stuff. You're in for a lot of heartache. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you from experience. So my hat's off to everyone, all my competitors, anyone out there that are building these things has my deepest gratification. And I have a lot of respect for those because going through it myself, they had to go through the same thing. And,
right.
So that whole industry there, that whole action side, I'll just let you ask some questions, Cole, and I'll try to answer them the best way I can when it comes to those actions.
Well, so, and a lot of people don't understand where a lot of these action companies started. Shooting for as many years as they have, a lot of them had a whole lot of problems, just like what he said with tolerances in the beginning. Now, what I mean by that is when you go out and shoot like a match like mine in Dog Valley where there's, moon dust and all the shit, they were making their actions so tight that as soon as they got a little bit dirty, they wouldn't work. So there's a very, very, very thin line between being too tight and not having the tight tolerances. And that's something these guys have, I know, have put a lot of work into because we talked about it
right
a while back. You're like, oh, we're going to release it here in a month. And then, 6 months later,
right.
That's the evolution. But that's also says volumes about a company when they're like, hey, it just isn't right. It isn't the way we want it. It isn't, it's not where we want to go with it. And you guys kind of step back, in my opinion, just from looking at the action I've got and kind of went through like, okay, these are the things maybe we need to look at. Our pre-fits available, like you said, are, the integral rail. What was your thought process? Let's ask you this, because I know I get asked it a lot. Everybody's got their own opinion on it. Why an integral rail and why an integral bolt lug or recoil lug?
Well, if you're going to buy an action, this is just my opinion, and I'll go a step back further, for me and Mel to get into the bolt action world, it was very humbling. I knew we could build it, but I didn't know I'm not an expert. I'm not a professional shooter. I'm not a sniper. I'm not a gunsmith that's been working on these things for 30 years. And so one thing that I've learned as I gotten older in this business is you can learn a lot from a lot of qualified people. And I did my due diligence. I went out, and you were one of them. I talked to you about it even, and I just went around, and the people that would talk to me, I listened, and some would, some wouldn't. Obviously I did my own homework on these individuals, and wanted to make sure that these people were legit, they were experts. And even among the experts, you have various opinions. So I just made a list of all the pros and cons, of all the gripes, the bitches, the things that they wish it worked better, the things that they don't see. And I had a whole list, and it was daunting. And you can't make this action for everyone. Everyone's going to have their own spin, whether it's cosmetic or this, like you said, the lug, the rail, whatever. What I did know is there was a lot of things that I gathered that we could improve on. And when you spend over $1,000 on a custom action, in my opinion, to answer your initial question, I want that rail part of the action. I think it demands that. I mean, the money you're forking out, is necessary to have a full rail. And does it cost us more money to do that? Yeah, it does. I'm not going to lie. Let me get that adjusted there. It just fell down. But, and the lug. And people say, well, how much? Well, you're probably adding on 3/4 of an inch of material by machining that lug and rail. So right off the bat, you're spending more money on bringing in a bigger chunk of material. And then you start adding the machining time that's extra, the tooling costs. And so that's where the customs really coming in. And that's what's driving the cost too. We'll be working on another action that's going to be released this year that's going to have a bolt-on rail and a bolt-on lug. So, and of course, that's going to be at a cheaper cost, because I'm going to pass that savings on to the consumer. But back to that solid rail, I just think there's a lot of talk about if it's solid, it's more sturdier. Your optic's going to be in a better place. That's debatable. Same with your lug. If it's bolted on or pinned on, is it really going to move? It's all perception for some, and some they swear up and down, hey, I want it part of it. We took it a step further. We put a little spin on it. We made it a little thicker, a little longer. If you noticed on the action I sent out to you, we actually did a relief cut on the back side of that lug. So when you bed it up against the wall, there's a little bit of relief there. These are little changes, little things that we heard throughout the industry. The rail itself, the self-leveling, listening to experts. Tyler Hughes, he brought that up. He mentioned that. You should look into that. I wish I could take credit for that, but I give credit to anybody that's ever offered me advice. So I got to give him a plug for that. We took some weight off the rail by just, putting that radius down the middle. Just gives it a different look. So we tried to spice it up without offending, the traditional bolt guys out there. And those were two of the biggest changes that we made cosmetically. Internally, we went through a ton of people that talked about prefits and, the complaints, the concerns, the dangers, I got to be honest, it's not easy. And, when someone takes that barrel and they want to screw it onto your action on the receiver, it better be headspace right. It better do what it's doing. And so, we went through that whole learning curve and perfecting all of that. And, it's a 700 rim and it's a clone, But if you start looking closely at all the little details, I think we covered just about everything we can. Now we got some really cool stuff, and we'll probably get into that a little later, that we're going to expand on these actions. And but the rail and the lug, we just chose mainly to keep them solid, because I felt that most people just wanted to spend them. Just if they're going to spend that kind of money, I wanted to make sure they got what they deserved.
Yeah. We've got a question on our YouTube. On your action, will you eventually be offering one that you can use on the bigger Magnum? My guess is, 300 Norma, 338 Lapua, Win Mags, any of that stuff. Where's your timeline for that kind of stuff?
So the answer is yes, we are. From the very beginning, when we got into the actions, we made the decision early, right up front, that we were going to get into the long action, the XL, the left-handed actions. We threw around the mid-level action, but at the end of the day, we knew all that going in. So what we wanted to do is we weren't going to start all of these at once. We picked the short action, and we wanted to prove out everything, because most of everything that we're doing on this short action is going to roll into everything else. It's going to be a little bigger, a little longer, but everything else, as far as the manufacturing process, the engineering, is all going to be the same. And so if you start all of these at once, and if you have to make one change on the short action, and you already got things going in on the long action and all these other things, it's a nightmare, So I know people are daily I get questions on, hey, when's your lefts coming? When's your long actions coming? When's your XLs coming? And they're coming. And, right now I'm hoping next month, I put a post up yesterday that we're going to be launching our long actions. That's all your Magnums. And, that covers about at least 45 off the top of my head, different types of calibers you can run in that. And of course, the short action, we're making bolts with Magnum bolt faces. We made a 223 bolt as well, and we're even entertaining some more technology in the bolt down the road. I can mention 3 or 4 lug at this point. I can also mention removable bolt faces on our bolts too. So we're just getting started.
Yeah, and I guess people need to understand this too. Coming from the background that I have, it takes a long time for people to do this. Defiance and all these other companies release actions, but they've been doing it for years. They know exactly what they need to do. They can do it. But kudos to you guys for releasing something, making sure it works before you go releasing 30 things, because I've seen it too many times, even in the last 5 years, that a few companies have released something. They released a whole bunch of things, and then it's a complete and utter nightmare trying to get it all back, trying to fix it. Shit's falling apart. Stuff wasn't thought through 100%, and so good on you guys for thinking through it and not, rushing to try and push something out, even though you could have. Right now is the perfect time, because everybody wants something, and from the guys that I've talked to that have messaged me about the Falkor stuff, they're like, we can't keep it in stock. But, I haven't heard anything negative on it yet. I'm sure somebody's going to have something. They always do.
Right.
No matter what.
Yeah. Real. When I first came out with the prototypes, I really believed that the action that I took out to the range that day was pretty damn good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken it out there. And I'll tell you what, in the first 30 minutes to an hour, we broke it. Not just one, but like 3 or 4 of them. That broke my heart. I'm like, because I knew that it was going to delay everything. I knew it was going to take months to fix some of these things, and the cost is enormous. Some things we completely went back and had to redesign and figure it all out. The bulk release and all that was one of the things that we completely rechanged and redesigned, because, our first design, we were breaking off the release button. We wanted this thing to be able to hold up, especially in the PRS or any professional shooting competitions, and you shoot as well. So you understand that you just can't have failures with your action and those types of things. So, we had people run these things and try to break them, and they broke them. And, I told them to, and some of them were a little shy too. And I said, I can't have it. I can't have this released. And then somebody else breaks it. And, then I'm on the phone explaining and trying to replace parts or replace the action. I don't want to have to replace anything. I mean, so that's something I've learned early on. If you're going to try to do something, do it right the first time before you release. But I'll tell you right now, I'm sure, we're always making adjustments. As we send these out and we're getting feedback, and like you said, 99% of it is positive stuff. Mm. But there are some things that people have sent me DMs or called me or text me or send me emails or talk to my team about, hey, what about this? Can you improve that? Just last week, I had a major customer, take a look, and they did a complete eval, and they gave me 4 different things to see if we can improve upon. And I didn't give it any thought, but, it's okay to listen to people criticize your products. And, it's tough to swallow at times, but if you truly want to have one of the best actions or best rifles, whatever it is that you're doing in business, you have to listen to those folks, and some of them don't have the best delivery. Some of them don't have the best tact when they tell you these things. But if you just look at it purely business and what they're really saying, and a lot of them are spot on with what they're asking. And in a few cases, there's things that I don't agree with and I won't change, but most of the things, I will take a hard look at it with my team and my engineers, and if it makes sense, we'll definitely change it. And I would say in the last 6 months, there's probably been 12 different things I've changed on an action that I didn't think at that time when we released it that there was any change going to be made. And the little things, whether it's adjusting a tolerance, a couple tenths, if that's what it takes, to a tenon change, to, function or whatever. They're little things. And I think that's what separates the top tier action manufacturers from the others, are the ones that listen. And to your point, I've shot competitively, but there's no better testing ground than taking your action out there and putting it in a few people's hands and telling them, go shoot. And, you're going to learn where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are. And we did that as well. And I suspect over the next few years, we're going to continue to keep making little changes, especially when we're going into different realms of our actions and introducing new technologies and things that we haven't done before. We're gonna have those bumps along the way. So that's where we're at with all that.
Yeah, and there was a big company, and I'm not going to say who because it's not my place to say it, but they came out with a new action, came out with a whole new rifle, invited a whole bunch of riders to come check this rifle out. Riders showed up and completely destroyed the action. And I don't know what, the baseline was behind it. They pulled the bolts off. They destroyed it. It was a bad deal. The biggest thing that this company took from it was they learned and they adapted and they fixed, and you guys kind of fixed that before. You got the right people testing it. I don't know how many times, even with action still, I see people, in a couple of the recent matches I've been to, they pull their bolt and there goes the bolt stop, and now they don't have a bolt stop. And when they're trying to run their gun, the bolt comes out and they're trying to throw it back in. It's the little things that will screw you up in a match when your bolt falls apart. Bolt handles were like that with their old 700s. When they'd solder them on, people would hit them too hard, the bolt would come off in your hand. Are your bolts one piece?
They're all one piece. We do have our handle. We have different handles, so you can screw them on and take them off. But unless you want to take a crescent wrench to take them off, they're on. You know what I mean? They're not going to fall off. At least I haven't seen in any of the testing I've done. I haven't heard anybody They're very similar to some. And that's something we looked at is do we machine that whole thing in one shot? I didn't think we needed to. I think we wanted to have that flexibility to offer people different handles that they may want, even maybe a handle that they got from their dad or from another competitor that they like, or if they want to go buy an aftermarket one, I don't want them to have to buy a whole new bolt to do that.
Yeah, and I like your bolt. The one that I've got's fluted. It feels good. It's not big. But some people like those giant knobs that they get a little more leverage. So that's a good kudo to you guys for thinking through that. Now you've said that you're going to release magnums and different things. Let's talk a little bit about your chassis. Now, a lot of people, I don't know if they've seen your chassis yet. I've noticed, well, I tried looking on your website yesterday and I've noticed that you've got full rifles coming out soon, the pre-orders there.
Yeah.
Where are your chassis at right now?
So, how can I say this? I love chassis. I think they're cool, and there's a lot of things you can do with them. Just a lot of different looks. If you this, if you go out to a match and you look around, there's so many chassis systems out there, and they're all good, and we came out with something that wasn't over the top, wasn't simple, but wasn't, I didn't think was anything extraordinary. But we wanted to get into the chassis world. And so we did. And we offered 2 different versions, the LWS and the CSS. And one of the things that I like to do before I really get into something from a business point of view is we do all of our own engineering in-house. We do all of our manufacturing in-house, all of our finishing in-house, anodizing, all of it, assembly, everything. And when you get into these different types of products, you have to prove out your processes. So, you go from engineering to CNC programming, out on the floor, what kind of pallets you're going to use, what kind of fixtures you're going to use. And so what I like to do is start out and get all of those hiccups, all of those processes under control. So when you do go for the innovative product, if you do go with something more complex, you got a solid backbone as far as a process goes. And so that's what I wanted to do with our chassis. I'll tell everyone right now on this show that I'm going to be coming out with a chassis here early next quarter that I feel is very, very cool. And of course, I'm biased. But a lot of effort went into this chassis, and I'm doing a lot of personal programming myself on it because I love the way it looks. I love the ergonomics. I love the function of it, and I can't wait to release it. But it's going to be coming out soon. But there's a lot to do with that. I got to tell you, it's kind of like going through the action. We started making the chassis, and we were having issues with everything. From the stocks to the center section to the hand guards. The ergonomics. I took a couple prototypes out, had a lot of different shooters shoot it. They came back with mixed results. They liked it. They didn't like this. They didn't like. So it was very similar to the action process. And to the point where I said, wait a minute, I got to go back to the starting board, and I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to a lot of experts, and I'm going to talk to women. I'm going to talk to teenagers, kids that are shooting them, to adults, to pros, to not everybody. And, took what we've done in the past with the CSS and the LWS and rolled us all in. Has no name yet. I'm still thinking about the name, but I will tell you that it can be from about 9 pounds to about 33 pounds. Any configuration that you want. It's very modular. So, if you want to hunt with it, you can. If you want to go out and bench shoot, you can. If you want to go compete with it, you can adjust it any way you want. It has all the bells and whistles. It's very I would say it's very friendly in terms of pricing. I mean, I left it open where if you want the whole enchilada, you can buy everything from the weights, you know, to the Arca rail, to everything, or you can just buy the main body and you know, and buy pieces as you go when you can afford it. So, but the chassis is back to the LWS and the CSS. Yes, we're having a hard time keeping them in stock. They're selling, and they're a great product. They don't break the bank, but at the same time, they look good. They work well. They function well. The LWS looked really cool. You can do a lot of things. We even have a mini Falkor chassis where you can build a pistol bolt action rifle out of it, which is super light. So a lot of time went into it. We're also doing a lot of cool color schemes. You know, I figure I'm real big on, I guess, the looks. You know, I can put black, we can put tan, we can do solid colors. And there's a lot of people, there's nothing wrong with that. But I also believe that, you know, if you're going to stand out and be a little bit different from most, you need to put a little extra time and effort into the finishes. So everything that we do gets hard anodized. Everything we do gets hand to bird prior to that. And then we Cerakote. So even if you scrape off the coating or off the Cerakote or anything else, it's always protected underneath. So, you know, we take these little things that a lot of people take for granted or don't know what we do. And when people actually come here and we have limited tours that we put out, when they see the effort that we put through all this stuff, I think they walk out of here. I mean, everybody I talk to, it's like, I don't realize all of the things that it takes to build these things, whether it's chassis or actions or it's, yeah, that's why they're priced the way they are. You know, if you want garbage, if you want something cheap, if you want something out there, then fine, you can find those. And if that's all you can afford and that's all you want to do is get into that, that's fine. I'm not dishing any company that builds those types of guns at all. I'm just saying here at Falkor, we just don't cut corners. And I mean, zero corners. So you get what you buy for. And obviously, if you don't like what you see or if you have any issues, I'll either replace it, give you your money back. Here you are. No questions asked. So that's our chassis lineup. And obviously, we make barrels here too, Dracos barrels. So it just made sense for us to start offering complete bolt action rifles. But, you know, again, you know, it takes time to do that, as you well know. Just because you make all the parts doesn't mean you can turn around and just put all these things together and make a great rifle either. It takes a whole nother level of assembly and process and gunsmithing and all of that stuff. So that's what we're doing here at Falkor. And if people can trust us with our long range ARs and what we've done there, I think they're going to be very satisfied with what we're going to be doing with our bolt actions. And we're just getting started, literally just getting started. Starting to get a little, do you hear me over there? I'm having a little technical difficulty, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So what a lot of people don't understand is that most action companies don't build their own actions. Well, not necessarily most, but a lot of companies don't build their own actions. They just kind of design them, and then somebody else does all the work, which, that sets a lot of companies apart when they build their own actions, and then they can change things on the fly. They can control the QC a little better, things like that. So that's something that a lot of people need to also understand when they're looking for an action. How can it be controlled through quality control and everything else? Can you tell us now? I know a lot of people are going to ask me more about the Dracos barrels because you guys released them. It's been like a year or two ago. A lot of people, were like, "Oh, how the hell can you offer a lifetime warranty barrel?" Or however you guys had it. Can you tell us about those barrels a little bit more?
Right. So the technology came from two former special forces individuals that served our country and served it well. And they came up with this system years and years ago. And what Melinda and I did was acquired the rights to it. And I'd like to think that we helped perfect it. It's not for every application. It's not for everybody. I'll just say that. I've hunted with it. I've shot professionally on the PRS and NRS, all of those. I've had great success with Dracos. I would say one of the biggest pros is it weighs less than a steel barrel. It lives right in the middle of a carbon fiber and steel barrel. It kind of lands right in the middle there. We use nothing but the best cores. Most of the cores that are in our Dracos barrels are Bartlein. So that's all I need to say. I mean, if you look up Bartlein barrels, they have an extraordinary track record. They build some of the best barrels in the world.
Yep.
So most of our cores are from them, including the ones that we're offering on our bolt actions. And I flew out there and visited with both of Tracy and Frank for a good day and talked to them about partnering up and having them do a lot of our cores. And they've been wonderful to work with. We've worked with just about everybody, major brands, great barrel manufacturers out there, including Proof Research. That's right, basically down the road from us as well. And they make an awesome barrel too. And you mentioned several that you've tried, and you've even are sponsoring one right now. So Dracos does a great job when it comes to like cold bore shooting, heat mitigation. The technology draws the heat from the core. And anybody that shoots these things, heat destroys accuracy. And over time, you shoot out of barrels because the heat just, it devastates them. And so Dracos the technology has proven that you can shoot these barrels for a long time before your accuracy starts to suffer. I haven't shot one of my barrels out yet. So, yeah, we've been doing that for about 4 years or so, I want to say. We're always improving that as well. I'm learning a lot when it comes to bolt action world. We're experimenting with different things. So we're always doing innovative things up here when it comes to barrel technology, but the technology hasn't really changed. It's worked really well for us. Some people, like everything else, they like extreme light, they're going to go carbon fiber. Some of the guys that shoot super heavy, they want the weight, so they're going to go steel. We just are one of those folks that offer this type of technology in this space. And if you are interested in any more information, you can just reach out to me or Dustin, and we can fill you in on more of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've tried I've got pretty much every chassis you can think of. I've got MPAs, MDTs, KRGs, I've got XLRs, I've got most of them. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what you guys have come out with, and every one of them has something great that I like, and others, there's just different options. If you could put them all together, you'd have the ultimate, but it's kind of, it's impossible to do all that.
Right.
But I am excited to see the weighting, the weight systems that you guys are talking about. The ergonomics, that's a huge one. How does it feel when you're shooting it? Because, it seems like chassis are going leaps and bounds above stocks right now, because stocks have kind of been stuck. That there's a certain look and a feel to them, and that's it. And chassis have kind of taken that above and beyond, and added a lot of features in that a lot of stocks can't. So it's interesting to see what you guys are going to come out with.
Yeah, you're going to get one, so you're on the list, and that's one thing. When these do come out, they got to go through a whole evaluation period, and guys like yourself, you go out to the range and you put them through the gamut. And whether you're big or small, I mean, that's the biggest. You mentioned something that's very true. I mean, how do you build something that fits all? It's almost impossible. It really is. Some people have big hands, small hands. Some people are not very big in general. They're not physically imposing, where they need something more lighter or whatever. So how do you satisfy that? And you can't. But what we try to do here is, let's take into all of these things. Let's hit 80-90% of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people say, well, never sacrifice ergonomics for function or cosmetics or any way you want to look at it. I just think that's bullshit. I think if you sit down, you can hit all three. I sat down, I went to the Q a couple of years ago, talked to Kevin Branham for all day.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this thing. And him and I agreed on one thing. You should have function, cosmetics, and ergonomics. If you can't hit all three, then you're not that good.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say it. And I wasn't that good. I was one of those guys. But if you sit down and you really think about it and you engineer it out and you take it out to the range, yeah, it might look badass, but man, the ergonomics suck. Well, you got to go back to the drawing board. Hey, you know what? Ergonomics are great. Cosmetics look great, but the damn thing doesn't work. So you got to hit all of them. And I think there's some great companies right now in the bolt action with NAR that are doing just that. There's a bunch of them that are not. And again, it's open to people's opinions. I mean, I'm just saying what I think. I think we can hit all three. I think on a lot of our products, we're doing that. And obviously there's some people that may or may agree or disagree. So I'm not afraid to throw my hat in, I guess.
Well, so I guess that brings to my final question. Before we part ways, is what is the direction that you see Falkor going? You've had a great line of AR success. You guys kind of ruled the market there. You still do in that regards, in my opinion. But is Falkor going to start going more towards this direction, or what do you see? What is the future for Falkor in your mind?
So, it's Melinda and I's vision, whether you're in the market for an AR or a bolt action, whether it's hunting, whether it's competitive shooting, whatever fits your fancy. I'd like to hope that Falkor is in that conversation. A lot of people say, well, you can't be all of them. Man, maybe that's true. I'm not a Remington. I'm not a Savage. I'm not a Ruger. I'm not a Daniel Defense. I'm Falkor. And I'm never going to be one of those huge, big Fortune 500 type companies. That's something that I have no ambition of doing. I think once you get to a certain point and you get so large like that, you almost get disconnected to the consumer. And I want to be able to walk out on the range. I want to be able to walk in the woods and run into somebody. And if they have a Falkor, I'd like to spend time and talk to them and be able to have that conversation with them about all the thought processes that went into that. Our future here is obviously we're getting into a new world of bolt actions. And I think in the next few years, I think you're going to see that we're going to be very competitive, and we're going to be marching towards, my goal is to, hey, when precision, accuracy, quality, my goal is I want to hear Falkor's name. You might not like the way it looks, but man, you cannot deny that the thing runs, the quality's there, the workmanship's there. That's success. For me, it's success for my team. And we want to be a brand that's cool, trendy. When you call in, you get someone on the phone. If you stop by, hey, can I get a tour? I like behind the scenes type of stuff. I want people to know that we're just normal people here, like everybody else. And we're just trying to build things cool. As far as getting there, we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of great brands, and I walk into this very humbly, and I'm very, very impressed, Cole, with some of the feedback that I get from my competitors. And it shows a lot of class. I mean, a lot of people get bitter. A lot of people get upset when competition comes.
Yep.
And for me, I embrace it. The more competition out there is only going to make you better. If you really want to get better, you're going to embrace that. And some of these guys that are my direct competitors have sent me messages or came out of the way to come talk to me and said, hey, if you need any help or if you have any issues here or questions, I'll answer them. And that's wonderful. And, I do the same for those that come to me, and we all can live in this world in the firearms industry as manufacturers. And there's lots of people, and, you're in this business yourself, social media world that you live in and that I live in. I mean, the love, the hate, the opinions and all that stuff. I mean, I just take it with a grain of salt,
Snipers. They're all everywhere. Yeah.
So I think, to honestly answer you, I would like to go to a place where, like I said, it's my dream. It's my goal to, when I show someone a bolt action rifle, whether it's a conventional stock or if it's in a chassis, the action, the barrel, everything, when someone looks at that and says, man, this is art. This is awesome. There's no greater feeling that I get when someone says that. And, and to be in the name, being in the circle of some of these others that have worked so hard, that built their brands up, to be in that same type of conversation is validation for us as well. So if we can get to that point, I think, it does all the talking. We have a little hashtag that I always use, run your gun, not your mouth. I can sit here and tell everyone that's watching and everyone's listening, tell you how great we are, how badass our products are. But that's just my opinion. It's you guys that get to decide that. It's you guys that determine where Falkor's future is and where they stack up against the competition. And we just recently got ranked #1 in ballistic, and that was over the top for me. I still can't believe that. Yeah, and you know what? Next year, I might get knocked off. There might be somebody else comes in, and congratulations to them. I mean, it all goes around, and it's just, sometimes you just got to take the time to celebrate the wins and lick your wounds when you don't. And I've done them both.
Right. Yeah, and I think the big takeaways here are, a lot of these brands have been doing it for years, and then somebody comes in and kind of shows them, hey, things can be changed again. It's like you said, it makes people kind of reevaluate where they're at in their progression. One thing that I'd like to make the listeners kind of think about is, if you look at most of these companies, and I can spit off quite a few, they don't control a quarter of their manufacturing. So whether they're a chassis company, they have to buy an action and a barrel. Whether they're an action company, they have to buy a chassis and this stuff. So think about this. Falkor's controlling all of it. The only thing that I've got out of this that you aren't controlling is a trigger. So the only thing that Falkor isn't going to have the ability to control is a trigger system. But with trigger systems the way they are now, you can't go wrong with them. Right. So, I mean, think about that when you go into all this is, everybody's got tolerances, everybody's got everything else, but these guys are going to have their own tolerances that are going to work with everything. They're going to control all of it. So when you're looking at a purchase, think about that when you're going into it. So it's definitely something that should be something you think about. And one of my new hashtags that I'm going to be using is behind the brand. Behind the brand is something big to me because I've worked with a lot of people over a decade in this industry. And one of the biggest things that set people apart is the people behind the brand. It has nothing to do with the products themselves. There's a lot of great products and there's a lot of shitty products, but it comes back to everybody that sits behind that brand that has the passion for it, the drive for it, and everything else. So start looking for that hashtag behind the brand, because I want to really start pushing that, because there's a lot of people in this industry that I think go above and beyond to do that. And there's going to be a bunch of them that I'm going to start bringing on the podcast, and we're going to talk about their brand and their branding and everything else. And you guys have done a phenomenal job at Falkor. So kudos to that.
That's a great point. And I'm glad that you're doing that, because it is the people, Melinda and I are so misunderstood, and I think a lot of people, when they look at us or even Falkor, we're just hardworking, blue collar workers like everybody else. We have our woes, our problems. We have so many responsibilities and things. We both work. We both come here all day and put in our time, and it never stops here. We go home on the weekends. We travel. And there's so many awesome people in this industry. And you're right. There's the people behind some of these brands are just amazing people. And it's a wonderful industry. And yeah, there's some bad apples. There's bad apples everywhere in every industry. But for the most part, I got to tell you, there's some great manufacturers, and the people behind them, I can name a ton of people, but I'll just refrain. There's so many, I might be afraid I might miss a few, so I won't say any. But I think you're going to have a great time with that hashtag. I enjoyed this podcast immensely. My team here, behind the brand, I'll say the one more thing. It's not me. It's not Mel. It's folks like you. It's the people that work for us. They're doing all the work. I'm just along for the ride, and so blessed. So blessed in so many ways. It's just amazing. And so thankful to be on this podcast with you and to be on live, and all the great things I hear from people. Thank you so much. So
yeah, I appreciate that. I do have a couple questions before we leave that I didn't answer. Wendell asked, do the short action come with standard with small firing pins?
Do the small come with small? I think
they're standard.
They're standard.
They're standard.
Yep.
Okay.
Dustin just walked in here, so he just answered that for me. Yep.
Okay. Are the actions nitrated?
Yes. So all of our exposing pieces get nitrated. Our bolt gets DLC. Our cocking piece gets DLC. Our firing pin gets DLC'd. So DLC, diamond light coating. It took us a while to figure that process out. It's a great coating, but it's a very picky coating. There's a lot of prep work that you got to do prior to all that, and I don't want to waste your guys' time, but I think those two combinations are great. And there's some people don't like black. They like them Cerakoted, but we Cerakote right over on nitrite. We do all that. We don't, eliminate any type of coating, protective coating if we offer Cerakote. And some people just like the polished look, and the polishing look looks cool, so hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And just for you listeners to understand, that coating usually costs quite a bit more. If you were to go to certain manufacturers and you ask them for DLC coating, which most of them do not offer, it's usually a couple $100 more. So for that $12.99 price tag, it's DLC. So that's definitely an upgrade that you think of. So while I finish, you've got an integral lug, integral scope base. You've got the extractor system. It's phenomenal. Mine's red. Love it. One-piece bolt system. They've gone through and thought a lot of everything you do, DLC coated, all this stuff. So for that $12.99 price tag, you're getting one hell of phenomenal action, I think. So it's just my opinion.
Well, thank you very much. A lot of work went into it. A lot of consumers' input went into it. I don't think we cut any corners at all. If there's anything that ever comes up, we're humble enough to make the changes. But I think we're right there. We're just splitting hairs now.
Yep. Okay. Well, I've taken an hour of your time. I appreciate it, dude. I'm sure we're going to talk to you again when the chassis comes out. I know I'm going to be putting out more stuff on this action as I work through it. It's back there. Badass box. If you missed my unboxing, go check it out. I did an unboxing on it yesterday. We're going to spin it up, put it in some stuff, go shoot it, beat it up, see how it is. And I'm looking forward to this action. But I appreciate it, Jason. Thanks for taking the time. And we hope to be seeing more from you. We're excited to see it.
Same here. And you keep killing it. You have a great Christmas. And I can't wait to come down there. Maybe we can head out to the range together.
Oh, hell yeah. Yep, for sure. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Take care.
See you.
Don't be afraid to pipe up. Send us your questions or topics and we'll cover them on the show. Thanks for listening.